Sitting here with Ivan and Angie at 35StLouis Way in Angie's bedroom when she was a young nurse. And Ivan, were there any special items in this house that you remember?
Yes, well, I can remember my father having an emblem of an old Vauxhall vehicle which he mounted on a block of wood, and that was an ornament on the mantelpiece which we still have. And I'm talking about how many years ago?
50s?
50s.
50 years ago? 55 years ago.
Let's say 55 years
Yes.
ago.
So
In
that
actual fact, the
That would make it
emblem,
1952. 54.
54. You know, well, I was born in 54, so it's about, what, 40 years ago?
So it'd be 58, 59
Yes. And at the moment, my brother has the
then. Which brother?
AV. He's got the ornament in London.
In London, yes. He took that.
Which he
as a-
actually took and valued not too long ago, if I can remember correctly, at Sotheby's. And he was told not to polish it, because we were so used to wanting to keep it clean, but he hasn't had that done. He hasn't polished it, and it is actually valued at quite a penny.
And so the street and the house, with AB for example, you've mentioned him now, in the house, what was it like?
Yes, well, with him in the house, he was a young man
Of
doing his thing. How old was he, Angie?
When
high school?
Yes, he was at I think he was at high school already. The only thing I can remember is that when he came home with what was it, the chemical set he had, and he
Was
tried to
into
make
that
a bomb
Yes.
in the bathroom. That went all wrong, and then my mother was extremely angry, and he went to the flay. He went to go and cry at the flay. He came back and he could have bombed up the whole house. But that was the only exciting thing I can remember about him. Furthermore, he used to sit with his feet on the table in the lounge and study.
Yes, he was into his
And
study.
yes, and that was it.
And then
yes.
he got, when he went to university,
I can't remember.
when he
No,
went,
that
and
was
then he
different,
went
because I was in Immaculate, I think, at that time, because at 2 I left for Immaculate.
Okay.
When I was in St. Yes, at 2 I left for Immaculate. But coming back to me being here, the English Church School, EC,
Yes.
that's the school
yes.
I had gone to.
What was the principal's name again?
It was Father Reddy,
There you
who
go.
is
You
now Professor Reddy,
Okay.
and who is still alive. Has retired from the Good Shepherd Church in Grassy Park, but still on the odd occasion does a sermon. Coming back to the weather, we in the middle of a drought. How I wish we had the water we had then, because from the road to the house, we actually used to use, besides the Wellingtons, we used to use those baths, galvanized baths, and we used to use it as boats, little boats, and that was the fun we had, rowing up the path to the gate. And sand roads all the way, no tarred roads obviously at the time. The one thing that I must say is with the water here is that the houses were actually built lower than the road. The
Divisional
houses,
Council.
Yes, the divisional.
no, it wasn't Divisional Council at the time. It was Servitors, which was an
complex.
organization like your Square Hill. What did they have in Square
Garden
Hill?
cities.
Garden cities.
Yes.
It was, that is what we had here.
And this was a group area,
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was a group area.
which was why you had to move out of Woodstock.
Stop.
No, not necessarily at the time move out of Woodstock. But my father saw the writing on the wall. And with the children, he didn't want to be living and paying the due for the dilapidated place they lived in back in the day. And he had wanted a home of his own. And then he,
Organised
we
with
relocated to Grassy Park. And this servitus, he heard about the sale and the houses that were going to be built through his employer at the time,
Holiday.
Mr. Holiday.
He was at that carpentry business
Yes.
they went to.
Because he was a joiner, and this Mr. Holiday was part of building these houses in servitors. And that's how we got to know about the servitors' houses that were going to be built. And he came, and I think you were with when they came.
You came with me.
I wasn't with Angie when you still said, oh, you know, when Daddy said to you that Frigadeldorp is where
We're going to live.
you're going to live. And you were angry because that was, and then eventually you saw. I wasn't with, it was you, Mommy and Daddy. I don't know, it was just you. That
Well,
you
I
came
was
because they
at
came to
this
show
age,
you.
yes.
And then at the time as well, it was bush. And the neighbors in Woodstock had said, no, what the
We're gonna go
dickens you want to go and live in the bush for, and all this, that and the other. But he was adamant that he wanted a home of his own. And in the year of our Lord 2018, we still have it.
What were the biggest changes that you can recall, besides the roads and the electricity and the development? Were there any other changes? Crime?
Crime
safety?
increased over the years, that goes without saying.
And I ask this because of the nursing that my mom did, where she could walk to work, she could walk back.
We walked.
Would she walk to where the health center is now and walk back in the afternoon? Is it safe for
Well,
a
the
woman to do
advantage,
that?
the
The houses
would-
that she used to go into, you know, midwifery is still required, but it doesn't happen from the health center anymore. You know, so those kind of changes have happened. We don't have midwives going to houses.
No.
So those changes, can you think of those big changes that have affected this
Yes, well,
community?
the influx of people into Grassy Park has made a major change. Hence, you had your Parkwood flats going up, the lower part of Lotus River, all of those sub-economical flats that went up. And that made a lot of changes because you had all the influx of those persons coming to live on our doorstep. Not that there was a problem, but it brought with it the undesirables.
As
And
well.
the poverty also played a huge role. The schools, there wasn't enough place in the schools to accommodate all of them. Our local clinic, there wasn't enough place, hence they had to open up the Lotus River Clinic.
At the time.
At the time, that was even before the 11th Avenue Day Hospital per se was built.
Yes.
Um,
Also, what I'm thinking of now, memory loss.
A senior moment.
a senior moment,
The
no
clinics
problem.
and the opening of the hospitals. In comparison with what was here then.
It was in the pipeline. A hospital was going to be built, and they do have the hospital here in Grassy Park now. But it's just that it was in the pipeline at the time.
Yes, it
Yes,
was
you
in
know,
the pipeline, and we're talking about this pipeline that was going on for how many
Many
years?
years.
It was never said that it was not going to happen, but it just never happened. And under correction, the hospital or the clinic in Grassy Park, which is now
It was the
a hospital,
yes.
was built, what, 5 years ago? As opposed to when you
I'm
were
not sure.
nursing and it was in the pipeline. But these are all the things that was said to one then. And the government of the day, of course, was not concerned about how badly you were living. So there we go. The funny thing of it all was Grassy Park never ever received a station.
Yes.
And
A railway station.
a railway station.
Yes.
The nearest one was Southfield. And in a funny way today, I say to myself, well, it's actually also a good idea that there wasn't any station. Because now, once you're in Grassy Park, at 8 o'clock, you've got to sleep over because you can't get out of there until the next morning. Re the taxi situation.
It's because, remember the bus?
The buses, back in the day we had buses, and these buses would religiously be on time. Busy Corner was the terminus.
Terminus.
The last bus out of
Lotus
Grassy Park was at 10 to 10 the evening. So you could come and go and it wasn't a problem.
So it was from Grassy Park to
Wynberg.
Lotus River, and then
Back
around
again.
again, Busy Corner, going around, either way.
And you mentioned the government of the time, and today's government. This is 2018,
Yes, well,
and we look at the public transport situation, the rail problem. In those days, the railways were there, the buses were there, taxis weren't.
Taxis went.
Taxis
the
didn't
taxis
exist.
were there,
No,
but
not
it was
minibus
sedan.
taxis.
It was sedan taxis.
Meter taxis.
Meter taxis, yes.
No minibus taxis
No.
in those days. The minibus taxis generally came about, as far as I recall, after the unrest in the 70s, when the buses couldn't get into the townships anymore, and people
transport
then
people.
started transporting people out of the townships with minibuses, and then the taxi industry kicked off. But traveling by train then, traveling by bus then, or by foot or by bicycle. Can you just...
It was
Rules.
never a problem. In
No.
actual fact, it was quite exciting. We would go to Wynberg, or we would go to Cape Town and go and watch at the Greenpoint Stadium. Go and watch a show, musical show, or whatever it might be. And you would walk all the way to Grassy Park and not have a problem. You would actually walk all the way to Grassy Park in a group and not have a problem. You could hitchhike back in the day, and you would get a lift, and you won't have a problem. Today, you just don't do things like that anymore. The transport was on time, well organized, although the segregation was there. The various coaches for the coloreds, for the blacks, and for the whites. But you got to work. And the problem today is you just don't get to work because of the train situation. And when we see clips of the behavior on trains, supposedly, just reminds me of one I saw not too long ago, Bonteheuwel Station. And this photograph looks terrible when you see people hanging out of windows. But at the end of the day, this is what happens every day. And these are people that need to get to work. It's as simple as that. They just need to get to work and get home again. And the train situation is so bad today that I'm glad I'm not part of it anymore, because I can remember when living with you in Squeal, how Peter and I used to walk to the station in winter, summer, spring, autumn, walk across the field, through the bush, to Retreat Station, into the train, to Wynberg, back again, no problem. Today it is a major problem.
So Angie, those days, just in closing now around your time in this room, and you're traveling and you're working, how long did you stay in this room, and where did you move to next?
Until I got married.
So how many years were you in this house? You got married at?
The slot in
Second
the
Avenue.
Second Avenue. That's where I got married. And it did rain that day too.
Yes, it did rain. I had a broken arm, but I
Yes.
was turning the dough in the dish,
Yes,
and it was a blessed day.
it was.
It was, and then the only telephone was in this home because of
When
you
did
being a
you-
nurse.
Yes, yes.
So
Then when did
we
it
were
come?
allowed to
You-
have a telephone, and hence the neighbours, your Mr. LeBron, Mrs. Scott, they would
In the
then
corner.
Soldier and Mrs. Williams, and then they would use, or at least there was a phone in the area that they could use for emergencies.
And today we take
We
phones
take a phone
granted.
for granted.
Everyone has
We've got,
everyone
everyone
has
has
a
got
cell
it in
phone.
your hand. You walk with it.
But it was
It was.
it was a good time to live in.
Also remember, this is what I used to do, that bicycle. Eh?
Yes, the bicycle. And from the bicycle, we upgraded to the moped.
Then I had a Villa Solex.
Yes.
Was the name.
Yes.
A mini.
Is the Villa Solex?
Yes, Villa Solex. What did we say? It was a mini. The what?
Help my trap. Help my trap. But they had a little motor on the front
Yes.
wheel,
Yes.
and there we go. That was the upgrade.
Okay, thanks. And we'll talk at another time and another place.
Thank you.
so much.